This is the story of Clara Burton. Clara Burton couldn't take her eyes off the lady in the painting hanging on the wall. The old woman's gray eyes looked weary, her face full of wrinkles that told stories of time. There was this silver brooch around her neck, featuring a deep crimson jewel that somehow seemed to glimmer in the candlelight of the foyer. Her high-collared white dress, which stiffly hugged her neck, was unbuttoned at the front, exposing her throat in a way that made Clara instinctively cover her own. As Clara took in the dress cascading down the woman's figure, she noticed how it clung to her frame, alluding to styles from a century past, while also leaving her bosom partially shielded. The lady sat there with an annoyed expression, hands carefully arranged in her lap, and Clara found herself wondering why she looked so upset despite being in such a grand home. Suddenly, Clara was drawn out of her thoughts by a voice. "Ah, so this is where you've been hiding, Clara. You didn't even make it past the aunt," came William Asheton Lazouche, the heir to the barony of Lazouche. He strolled into the foyer with a glass of wine in one hand and a teasing grin on his face, the other hand tucked behind his back. He didn't wear a powdered wig like many noblemen. Instead, his blonde hair fell around his shoulders, all while his deep blue coat flapped against his legs as he moved gracefully. "Come and have a drink with me," he said, revealing another wine glass from behind him. Clara gladly accepted the glass, her heart racing. Here she was, invited by him. She had never seen a man so handsome before, and a warm feeling surged through her even before she had taken a sip. "Good sir, is this painting of your aunt? She's quite mesmerizing," she remarked, her curiosity piqued by the intrigue of the artwork. "No, she's been hanging in our castle for as long as anyone can remember," William replied with a casual wave of the hand. "I hear she likes to watch over the guests during our feasts." Taking a sip of wine, Clara turned to face the painting again, swirling her dark green dress as she looked into William's sparkling blue eyes. "Hasn't she always been here to greet the lordship's visitors?" William's smile faded slightly. "Actually, I've heard that the staff takes her to a bedroom each night." "Why would they do that?" Clara asked, confused. He looked down, almost shyly. "Honestly, I have no idea, but asking so many questions is a bit uncommon for a lady. Come, let's leave this painting behind. The main hall awaits us with lemon cakes, exquisite wine, and a beautifully roasted goose. You'll love it," he said, extending his hand. Clara hesitated for a moment before placing her hand in his, letting him lead her away from the painting. The main hall was like nothing Clara had experienced before. Lords and ladies swayed around to the lively music that filled the space. Servants bustled about with trays laden with delicious snacks while a bard sang in the background, causing Clara to feel as if her feet barely touched the polished floor. As the night progressed, William danced with her, spinning her around, the lights blurring as she twirled. Clara couldn't help but feel a jolt of joy as she was caught off guard by a nearby figure in red, Dame Harriet Ann Curzon. "Who's this William? Just a common girl from the fields?" she said with a raised eyebrow. William laughed lightly. "No, Harriet. Allow me to introduce you to Clara Burton, the daughter of James and Mary Burton, the millwrights. She's actually quite the eligible lady here in Ashby-de-la-Zouch. Don't you think she has the loveliest brown curls?" Harriet took a sip of her drink, her expression unimpressed. "I suppose you could say that. She does have a certain rustic charm for what it's worth. By the way, I want to introduce you to Sir Geoffrey Morgan," she said, gesturing toward a tall, dark-haired man with a deep scar along his cheek. Geoffrey approached, his violet eye glinting as he smirked. "You appear to be a dangerous man, Sir Morgan," Clara remarked, her heart racing at his darkly handsome features. With an air of confidence, Geoffrey replied, I've had my share of encounters in the Americas and the West Indies. I've faced the Iroquois and battled against pirates, but I doubt you lovely ladies need any of that tonight. Can't speak for Lady Harriet, but I do feel safer knowing you're here, Sir Morgan, Clara said, playfully placing her hand on his arm while lightly brushing the golden button on his coat. William interjected, standing tall. Let's not forget, Sir Morgan, you are a guest of Lady Harriet tonight, and it looks like she might need a refill. He grinned before guiding Clara to the dance floor, keeping her glass full as they twirled around. As the night progressed into a dreamy haze, Clara barely got a moment to breathe. But when William excused himself, she seized the opportunity to step out into the foyer for a breath of fresh air. To her surprise, the painting was gone. All that remained was a faded outline on the wall where it had hung just hours before. Intrigued, Clara returned to the main hall, noticing two servants making their way through a hallway while carrying a covered bundle. She tiptoed to follow them, her heart pounding lightly in her chest as she noticed the flickering light of the torches guiding her along the way. The servants soon disappeared into a door on the right side of the hall, and after a few moments, they came back out without the bundle. Clara felt a pull toward that room, but just as she was about to slip inside, William arrived and whisked her away once more for another dance. Hours later, after the food and drink had dwindled and many guests had headed home, Clara felt drowsy but content. William took her down that torch-lit hallway again, leading her to the same door she had spied earlier. This time, he spun her around, revealing another door across from the one she had been eyeing. "Is this going to be my room?" she asked, curious and a bit nervous. William nodded. "Yes, Lady Clara. I'll make sure you get in and rest well tonight." Clara, filled with both excitement and uncertainty, didn't hesitate to ask, "Who's staying across from me? I want to know I'm safe." William smiled charmingly and kissed her hand. "Sir Morgan is across the way. There's a bell inside your room. If you need anything, just ring it, and help will come fast." He then reached for the door and unlocked it, passing the key into her hand. With a gentlemanly flourish, he closed the door behind her, leaving Clara in solitude. The room was lit, with just a few candles that flickered as she prepared for bed. She dug into her dress pocket and brought out her rosary. In a world where being Catholic was frowned upon, she wished to keep it private but didn't see the harm in a little prayer. Quickly, she knelt beside her bed and murmured her prayers, eager not to fall asleep before she finished. The next morning, Clara was awakened by pale moonlight seeping through a narrow window. She rose groggily, walking to the opening, and felt the cool night air waft in. But something else struck her. A low, unsettling whine echoed through the stillness, different from the usual sounds of wolves and foxes. A strange unease swept over her as her hand began to tremble. Reassured, she reached into her pocket and felt the smooth rosary, reminding herself that God was there to protect her. She draped it around her neck, crawled back under her covers, and clutched it tightly, whispering the Pater Noster once more before sleep took her. When Clara awoke next, it was to a bright, blaring light. She felt the urgency of the moment and clutched her rosary. On the dresser lay a brush along with a small brown bottle that emitted a floral scent mixed with something metallic. Clara quickly polished her hair and applied some of the sweet-smelling perfume. William found her in the hall, where guests were enjoying a breakfast of fruits and sliced meats. He led her to a seat, and before she could blink, a servant filled her goblet with ale. While eating, Clara looked around, spotting Lady Harriet in a tangerine dress adorned with a dazzling ruby choker, sitting alone. Clara waved. "My lady, you're not with anyone this morning? Where's Sir Morgan?" Harriet looked confused, then dismissed Clara's presence entirely. "Sir Morgan? Why would I need him here? My father's house doesn't require any guards. You don't belong here, Clara. It would be best for you to leave." William jumped in, mouth full of food. "That's too harsh. I feel tonight will be a big occasion." He turned to Clara, his visage lighting up. "Please say you'll stay one more day with us." Clara hardly knew how to react, feeling her heart swell at the thought. "Of course, my lord. I had such a marvelous time last night, and yes, tonight could be even more special." The possibilities of what could come next danced in her mind, as she daydreamed about the chance of courting with a nobleman, a notion so surreal. She also sensed the weight of expectations from her father when she'd return home. After finishing up her meal, she strolled back to the foyer where the painting stood in its usual place. But something was different. The lady in the portrait appeared less intimidating, rosy-cheeked and smiling now, rather than the scowling figure she'd seen before. Clara pondered if perhaps she was just seeing things from a different perspective after an enjoyable evening. She gazed at the painting until a voice pulled her away. "You find joy in that, Miss Burton? I can't understand why," Harriet said close behind her, her tone dripping with disdain. "If it were solely up to me, that painting would be locked away in the dungeon. But there it remains, a family relic. I'd suggest you make a swift exit. You're better off elsewhere." Despite feeling the heat in her cheeks from Harriet's snub, Clara responded with a friendly smile. "I don't understand why you harbor such dislike for me. I'm merely the daughter of a miller, not a threat to you. Perhaps we could even be friends." Harriet's expression hardened. "You're just a peasant, and trust me, we don't want you here. There are plenty of village boys who would be happy to have you back. Just don't show yourself again." Taking it in stride, Clara offered a courteous curtsy and took one last look at the painting before heading toward the main door. She refused to let Harriet's words affect her, choosing instead to bypass the main gate and walk through the gardens, admiring the blooms that surrounded her. She found a stone bench and settled down, letting the sweet fragrances of the flowers soothe her racing heart. Clara took out her rosary and began to pray quietly, feeling a deep sense of peace wash over her as her fingers moved over the wooden beads. The second night of feasting proved to be just as charming and delightful as the first. William kept her engaged, spinning her around with laughter and toasting with goblets of wine. Yet Clara couldn't ignore the fleeting glances she cast toward the foyer. The servants were busy again, moving the painting through the hall and toward the bedrooms, and it left her with a shiver. She had a nagging feeling that tonight it would end up in her room, but she shook off the thought, determined to enjoy the evening. As they walked the torchlit hall after the festivities winded down, she noticed William appearing tired, the glow around him dimming. "Here we are. Enjoy your night," he said, fumbling the key at the door. Clara stepped inside, and once the door clicked shut, she turned to see. There it was. The aunt returned to her spot, looking as sinister as the night before. Clara's stomach twisted with unease as the figures in the painting had morphed back into something more grotesque, a striking contrast to the friendly image she had seen that morning. Later, she awoke to an unsettling chill in the room, gripped by a fear that ran deeper than the cool air. Struggling to sit up, she spotted the aunt at the foot of her bed this time, eyes glowing with an unnatural aura, sharp fingers reaching toward her, which sent a chill running through her veins. The nightmare unfolded as the creature crawled toward her, its moan echoing like a death knell. Clara felt paralyzed, her voice shaking as she whimpered, "Stop, please!" The aunt let out a chilling laugh and began to claw at her bed. In that moment, recalling the teachings she held dear, Clara desperately grabbed her rosary, raising it up, whispering a prayer. The aunt recoiled, as if hit by the very words she spoke. Clara felt empowered and chanted the prayer louder. With every verse of the Pater Noster, the monster shrunk back, writhing unnaturally until it was cornered against the fireplace. By the time she uttered the final words, mere dust was left where the terror had once been. leaving Clara resting on the ground, soaking with sweat and exhaustion. Feeling fatigued yet relieved, she glanced up at the painting once more, this time observing a new image. A demonic figure with piercing eyes and horns, all menacing in its dark apparel, leaving her with an instinct that more danger might still await. The next morning, William waited outside her door, a hint of worry on his face. She met him with weariness distinguished by no sign of the previous night's trauma. "Oh, William, do stop staring," she teased. "It's unbecoming for a nobleman. I had a splendid time, but I must take my leave now. Please thank Lady Harriet for me. I don't think I'll be attending any more of these gatherings." With a grin, Clara turned to leave, disregarding the gray dust speckled on her vibrant dress. She quickened her pace, eager not to be late for Mass.